Benny boy, Benny boy, Benny boy. What do you reckon separates the second breast? Oh my God, we're off to a good start.
It depends where you start, the left or the right.
What separates the second best coffee brewer in the world from the rest of us?
That is the question we're here to chat about today, because we are sitting down with Australia's Brewers Cup champion and the newly crowned World Brewers Cup runner-up, second in the world, to find out what it actually matters when you're brewing such incredible coffee, and maybe what any home brewers and others have been just wasting their time on.
All right. In today's episode, we're going to cover off his routine, the coffee trends that are emerging from the world stage, and how you can actually take some of those lessons and apply it to your little humble setup at a cafe or at home. As always, I'm your host, Rowan Cook. I make coffee on the internet.
And I'm Ben Bicknell. I judge people who make coffee, but only in competitions.
And together we are
It's Just Coffee!
The podcast for people who know it's never just coffee. And today we're joined by the Australian champion, World Brewers runner-up, and his coach also, who has competed on the world stage, Simon Gautherin and Carlos Escobar.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, of course. The pleasure is always ours. Before we dive into anything, I've just got to say, I'm so proud of you, so proud of what you've done. Simon, we've been chatting over the past few years. I've seen you competing, going up. You're building a team around you that are competing. You've got APAX Lab. I'm so proud of everything that is coming into fruition for you. It's beautiful to see, and it couldn't be happening to anyone better. So congratulations first off.
Thank you. And it's just the beginning.
Hey, whoa, there we go. We'll get into that later. We've been seeing some of that. He's already planning what's coming next, but we'll talk about that a bit later. First of all, tell me what's going through your head when you're on stage and they're making the announcements.
When we're down to 6, I think there were 2 competitors in my mind that would potentially be in the top 3. And that was France and Czech Republic. And I was really scared of these 2 competitors in the finals. And they first announced Angie from France as 6th. And I was like, cool, 1 down. And then they announced South Korea, and then they announced Jackie from Czech Republic. Jackie went overtime, so I kind of knew he was is unlikely that he was in top 3. And then we're down to 3, and I thought, that's it, we got this. Nothing can stop us. We're down to 3, especially when they called Hong Kong 3rd, because that's kind of like
that was my big one.
Last year, Carlos called 3rd in the announcements, so once we were past the 3rd place, we're like, there's no way we come 2nd. No way. We got this. Boys, we got this. We've put the work. It all went well. We got this. And then 2nd place, Australia. And then, bit of a kick in the guts. But to be honest, yeah, we're just so happy. We're just happy to be there. So happy to be, I think, really consistent. I think that consistency was I think, amazing to see.
So much preparation, so much work behind the scenes, and also just like such great values throughout your presentation that we'll get into a second. But I mean, that kind of answers the question there about how the 2nd place is feeling, because there was going to be this question in my mind. It's like, it's almost harder coming 2nd than coming like 4th or something, in the way where it's like right there. And obviously, you know, no malice for any other competitors. I know it's all a self-built kind of goal and what you want to accomplish in that. And I know that you respect everyone in the game. Is it a strange feeling of like joy and like what an amazing accomplishment, but also being that close?
Yeah, there's been a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't know if I should say congratulations or sorry. But yeah, it's obviously it's mixed feelings, but surprisingly, I'm feeling a lot better about it than I thought I would have. And for some reason in my mind, going into this competition, like 2nd place wasn't an option. I was imagining either 1st or maybe out in the 1st round. I don't know why, but I was like, either we've taken the right strategy and that's it, we're going all the way, we're winning this, or we haven't taken the right strategy and then we're not even going to make it to finals. So I was really stressed for the top 6. That was where I was like, shit, are we making it to top 6? And then when it announced that we were in top 6, I was like, that's it. I think now we got this. And so 2nd, I think it's an amazing outcome. So
we have been now in 3 finals, 3 world finals, 4th place, 3rd place, now 2nd place. Is like, man, again.
I see a pattern there.
Good thing is that we're still improving. We're still moving up.
The maths is right there. You win next year.
Exactly.
It's like, it's there. It's on the...
That is the thing. Like, I think we should be super proud and happy with the second place. Like, we were so close. We showed absolutely everyone that we have the potential to win it. Every year, the trends, the concepts, the coffees change drastically. And I think
You need to reinvent yourself.
Simon and I have shown that. We have gotten the ability to read the market, read the trends, and adapt ourselves to maintain that level for now, like for 4 or 5 years. So like, I think it's a great thing, but of course that little taste of like, why not the first?
So we had the winner is it Nas Jafar? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
From Malaysia. So he
Nas.
was the first winner ever out of Malaysia. And I recommend everyone listening, go watch that routine, go watch Simon's routine. Are there any others? I mean, it's an interesting thing there because you said the ones you were worried about came, 6th and 4th? Is that right?
Yeah.
Are they the other
6th
two
and 4th,
routines
yeah.
you should go and check out?
I mean, there's plenty of routines that I think that are worth watching, but I think, especially knowing Jackie, he was in top 6 in 2024 already. I knew he was really good at open service. So I don't think presentation is what he likes the most. I don't think it's necessarily his forte, but his coffee making skills are phenomenal. And I think that's something that we miss when we're just watching the presentation. We go, that person's not very good. He's not going to win. She's not going to win. Oh, this guy is so good. He's going to win the whole championship. And it's like, well, it's just, that's the presentation part. But you're missing out on what the coffee tastes like. And we know how people brew coffee. So we knew that Jackie was a phenomenal brewer. And for that reason, I think that made him a very scary competitor. And as a matter of fact, he was first place going into round 1. He finished round 1 first, and we're second in round 1. And so I think we were right to.
And my biggest concern was Hong Kong, and
They were first in finals.
and they
Open
were
service.
the first one. Yeah. And that's the one I was saying, like, oof, that's the team to beat, man.
And I mean, we talked about this on a previous episode leading into the competition with Ellie from Singapore. And the framework is that obviously you've got an opens round and a compulsory service. So you're provided in the compulsory the standardized coffee, no presentation elements. It's all about brewing with what you have, right? And then there is the performance side that you see, that everyone looks at and judges, and we don't get to taste the coffee. I know you mentioned there was only a thin sliver between first and second in terms of points. Do you kind of know what the breakdown was between those two rounds?
Yeah, and it actually even between us and I mean second and third place. So there's a 7 or 8 point gap between first and second, and there's only a 2 point gap between second and third, which is tiny. It comes down to, did you pour an extra 3 grams of water onto one of your coffees, and that would have been 4 points, for example. Like that's the level of like accuracy that it comes down to. Nas won the compulsory rounds, and he won it by far, and so. That's what made him. So he was very consistent. His score in open service was very good, but he absolutely demolished everyone in compulsory, and so that made him the champion. So
that's what makes Brewers Cup the best competition. That element of compulsory, which is not only about your presence on stage, how loud you shout, your most expensive coffee. No, like it's also about like doing a coffee in the same conditions than all other competitors. And I think for the last years, it has always come to that. The winner is always decided by compulsory.
Wins the whole thing.
So that happened last year too. The year before, pretty much whoever wins compulsory in finals, the one taking the trophy.
Well, it's fascinating to learn what's under the hood of those competitions, right? Because there's so many different aspects, like you said, the smallest things that might not be visible to a spectator. But one thing that was really visible that I absolutely loved was your concept, Simon, that you presented on stage. I was lucky enough to be watching in the crowd there as you presented in the finals, and like the flow was amazing, but the message was incredible too. It's something I feel like we've been talking a lot about on the podcast, because it really focused around the idea of clarity. And not just clarity in the cup, but also in the way we communicate about ideas of coffee, which is really, I think, kind of what we're trying to do with the podcast as well. It's not surprising that the coffee industry sometimes, often overcomplicates things and unintentionally like pushes people away. What was the message about clarity that you really wanted to drive home for the judges in that context?
I think you summarize it really well. We tend to overcomplicate things in coffee because coffee itself is unbelievably complex. Like as a product, when we're making coffee, we're using water, we're using coffee. They're two unbelievably complex products, and so it's very easy to get carried away and complicate everything. And we're also already passionate, so we've all been there serving coffee behind the bar where, you want to serve coffee to someone and you kind of like overload them with information because you're so passionate. But I think that's when you create disconnection and not connection. And I think sometimes less is more. Being able to give less explanation allows for more connection, and also serving cups that are less complex and sort of like more simple, easy to connect with, also gets more people into specialty coffee, especially with coffee competitions, because there's so much work involved and we go really technical and there's a lot of innovation. It can be very easily overwhelming and super technical. And I wanted to do something where my family could watch this presentation, where anyone that's just new to coffee could watch this presentation and could connect with it and could say, these guys obviously doing like weird things on stage and it looks complex, but actually I understand everything. It all makes sense to me. And so this whole idea of less is more was kind of like the driver for this whole presentation, essentially.
And I got to say, I Ben, sorry if I get in trouble for this. Ben's on judging things, so I get yelled at when I misspeak on stuff. But I find, like, from watching some of the competitions, like some of them for me, watching like these 15-minute one after the other can be pretty boring. Yours was just like, I was in it from the start. I was like understanding every part. It was such a simple and well-presented message. It was presented really well. And it was such a nice thing because it was exactly what you said about like my mum or whoever should be able to watch this and get it. I was like, to have such a complex idea shown with clarity and simplicity, it was like, God, you just had clarity running through every theme there, didn't you?
Well, that was the whole idea. The whole idea was to explain with clarity and also serve a cup that had clarity. It was maybe a bit of an unnecessary gamble. The whole premise of the presentation was clarity. So if the cup that we deliver doesn't have perfect clarity, then you get absolutely butchered on the score sheet because you're saying Italian, hey, I'm doing this, and it's giving clarity, and then I know how to brew coffee, and we roasted coffee this way, and it's gonna give you these flavors and this. And if they don't get that, then you've been telling them for 10 minutes that you're gonna be delivering something that they can connect with, and then they will, they'll find elegant and familiar. And then if they don't find any of that, you lose 50 points on the score sheets very, very quickly.
You're subconsciously pushing the judges into being harsher with you because, aren't you? Like you're almost, I mean, that's a bold move, but obviously performing so well.
We're risk takers, and we normally like to play like that. We play either to win or not to make it to finals, as we were saying. But of course, the little voice in your head is like, oof, maybe we just took so much risk that it wasn't needed. When we were not doubting, but there's always that little voice that says it.
We could have framed it differently, I think, to maybe take less risks. But in the end, I mean, it paid off. Something I'm very proud of is that on our tasting note accuracy, we had max score from every single judge. So every single note that we give, the judges got. They didn't get anything additional, which is, I think, for anyone who's committed, it's unbelievably difficult. Yes. And so being able, and I'm very proud of that because our final panel, we had a culturally diverse panel, and throughout all two panels, we had culturally diverse panels, and we're able to explain and predict how the coffee is going to taste. And it's a cup that we reverse engineered because we sourced the coffee, roasted it, brewed it, designed water in order to get these yellow and orange flavors. And so that, I think, to me, is something that I think we should be really proud of because we managed to deliver all of that into the cup.
Just to give you guys an example, we had like between 15 to 18 coffee options. We're very fortunate. Not many teams, I think, who knows if ever someone has had those many options. And that was fantastic to work with. But that gets you to a point to also find amazing coffees, world level coffees, than in any other concept you would consider or go for that. But because the team was clarity and needed to be orange and yellow, literally you could find an amazing coffee that had a little bit of pink or red notes, and then it was not an option. Then we had to just remove it from there. And it was like, man, this coffee is fantastic. We literally could make finals with this coffee, but it's not in the theme. So with any other strategy of theme, we could have changed coffees in an easier way.
Yeah. And so that was something I was going to bring up. You were talking about all the different coffees. I love that you posted about that afterwards with the other coffees that didn't make it or behind the scene. I thought that kind of transparency and talking about it not only shows the stages it takes to get there, but also just respect for the farmers and the coffees that are out there and how it changes day to day. So first off, kudos for that. But the bigger question coming is, you guys are maniacs competing in the World Brewers Cup. How much luggage does someone competing in the World Brewers Cup need to bring? Let's talk about that.
Here's the funny logistical parts. Worlds is in Brussels, the middle of Europe. Carlos lives in Colombia. I live in Australia. And Nemo, who's our third team member, who's part of the core team, is in France. So cool thing, Nemo is already there. But then we have the three team members in 3 different continents. So that's fun. That's the fun parts. In total, including our personal luggages and everything, it was over 300 kilos of luggages. And we're not talking about any, there's no espresso machine.
Brewers, how much is coffee? How much is water? What is it? What's the breakdown?
With water, it's close to 380 kilos.
Whoa.
Yeah. So coffee, you had 18 kilos of coffee? Or 20?
I was bringing only a part of the total amount of coffee. Only myself, I was bringing 18 kilos of roasted coffee, which was like...
Because you got to have
for Brewers Cup, you
backups
don't need
and
that
backups and backups, don't you? You got to have all of the stuff and all of the triplicate.
If your scale breaks down, you need a backup scale. And through that, where last year we had 6 scales, 2 of the scales broke down. And so we were glad we had the 6th one. Because you need 3 scales on stage. 2 break down, you're down to 5. And then so having buffer for everything is important. Like cups, for example, like we broke cups. So cups, you don't bring just 3 on stage, you bring like 10, for example. I started shipping stuff from Australia to Europe in December. So I won in November. And from December, I was already shipping stuff. I was already organizing the logistics. Getting everything that we needed in Europe took me about 3 months, basically. But I think it's very typical to Australia. I think if you're in Europe, competing in Europe, you don't necessarily have that much of a trouble. But for us, Carlos being in Colombia, me in Australia, that didn't make things easier.
Final touch just on clarity, the whole theme of the performance. We talked about cafes overcomplicating things. What's one thing that cafes could do tomorrow to bring that clarity into their service?
That's something that I used to do with my team when I was managing cafes back then, is giving the option for people to opt in. Give them an elevator pitch, 5 seconds, 10 seconds max. Hey, here's a coffee. This is a Kenyan wash. It'll be very juicy and refreshing. It'll taste like black currants. And just give them one note that you find is very obvious. And then if they're curious, they might say, oh, what is a wash process? Or, oh yeah, do you really get black currant? Does that come from the bean? Does that come from the soil? Does that come from... And then you give them the opportunity to basically give them a little teaser. You give them a little something. If they want to hang on to it and ask more questions, they can. But if they don't want to, which is the majority of people, then they'll just enjoy their coffee. And so I think finding ways to try and catch people's attention without overloading them with information is something that I think anyone can do. Just select the important things, like what's critical in terms of information for that cup, deliver that and just that, but also let your guests know that if they have questions, they can ask you these questions.
Like for a while, we've been talking about colors in coffee rather than specific tasting notes. And if you ask me, that's an easier way to connect with the consumer in a cafe. This coffee is very red rather than say it tastes like strawberry or raspberry. Chances are that that person is going to try it and do not taste the strawberry. And then the person will be disappointed and believe they know nothing and the baristas are the experts. And that's already a loss for specialty coffee. The other option is they believe that barista knows nothing and is an idiot telling me this tastes like a strawberry and I know better than him. And both people are losing in that case. Literally, to me, the tasting notes have always been that part that the industry needs to reevaluate, reassess, and make it easier, more approachable for competitions. Yes, that's when you need clarity and specifics. In a cafe environment, I do not see the need of throwing specifics into tasting description.
Yeah, or give broader categories like, hey, tropical fruits or berries. Like if you go, oh, this is like frozen raspberries, or this is, you know, like underripe mango. Like those, I think, really specific notes, they can be very daunting for customers. But if you stay very broad, like you say, oh, it's going to be very orange, yellow, very tropical. You'll find citrus, and like you give something for people to hang on to. Give them something to hang on to, something that's broad, not something too specific.
And I've said it so many times, like when you go into a cafe and there's a simple description and you taste it and it's actually there, it makes the coffee taste better because you feel like you're connected with it. You feel like you understand it. Where even if a coffee is better and you feel like you don't understand it, you might not enjoy it as much on that go around. One of the most disappointing ones that I've had is, and I feel like it was a trend for a while, the flavor descriptor of like Coca-Cola. And I'm just like, come on now. Like anyone that's not like understanding like the minute maybe flavor comparison there is going to be so disappointed when they have a coffee that has a tasting note of Coca-Cola.
It's interesting. I really like your take on it, Carlos, because I think there's a conversation here that's about clarity of information. So being clear in what you're saying, but it's also thinking about the recipient to it, you know, so it's thinking about what's actually important for them. And you've just come off the world stage. And so your recipients are the judges who have a very specific criteria for the information they're looking for. But in the cafe experience, like, you know, thinking about what's actually going to be important for the consumer to understand, and then how you can be very clear about communicating that. Because we tend to have this whole point, kind of like your concept, Simon, of, you know, we dump all this data on them as like, oh, this was a 42-hour anaerobic process with just ripe cherries at 1,450 meters above sea level. And this was a particular Maragahipe variety that did this and this and this. And it's like, is all of that information what they're actually coming for? Probably not. They're much more likely to be coming for, here's what you're going to experience in a really clear and approachable way. And here's one little hook or interesting idea that is about this. Oh, this is from a really young farmer who's kind of trying something completely different, and he's making coffee that tastes like this, you know. And if, as you said, Simon, then if the door is open, they're like, oh, wow, is that unusual that they're a young farmer? And you're like, yes, you know, Kenyan coffee producers' average age is 62. So yeah, that's a kind of an interesting thing. And you can start a conversation that's not a data table. So I think that's so cool to kind of have that conversation going for everyone. And I kind of wanted to reflect as well, coming back to the luggage conversation, that I'm sure you've thought about this. It's such a mission to get to these competitions, and obviously there's always considerations for accessibility and approach for who can go on stage. I mean, the great thing is seeing such a diversity of different countries coming into the top 6 over the years. That's been great to see. But for someone who's thinking of competing in the Brewers Cup competition in the future, you know, maybe listening to this, they're like, what? I've got to have like 350 kilos of luggage. I've got to have like 18 different coffees to choose from. What would be your recommendation for like the critical things and the advice to them just to getting started?
The first $5,000 you spend are going to be the biggest return that you have. And then I'll need to finalize the maths, but I actually shared how much we spent on our national championship, and we spent around 30,000 Australian dollars, which was around 20,000 US dollars just for nationals. Worlds, including travels to Panama to source coffee and things like that, and meals for the whole team. I think we're closer to 50 to 60,000 US dollars, just to give an idea. The $5,000 you spend between 55 and 60 give you a very small marginal gain. And so your best spent $5,000 are the ones on coffee, obviously. Like buying the best possible coffee is using your money to buy better coffee, I think is probably where you'll have greater results. But I think they were noticing this trend all around the world. Like there's more and more momentum for coffee competitions. There's more people joining. It's more competitive, and it's going to get more expensive. And it's not going to stop there. And Brewers Cup used to be the competition where you could enter for with very little money. Like I think you and I have done competitions where we borrow a couple of scales from someone, a kettle from a friend, maybe something from the cafe, a V60 from the cafe, and you could compete for like $500. And I think now now there's no way you can make it for less than a few $1,000s.
It's important to send a message that, look, it's not absolutely needed. No. Gives you higher chances. Yes. Makes your life easier. Yes. But at the end of the day, you still need one coffee that kills the score sheet, one set of brewing equipment that can easily fit into one suitcase. And so is it possible to be done with very little luggage and coffee? Possible? Yes, it is. Easy? Definitely not. We've been competing for 10 years and we have never had access to 18 coffees. This is the absolute first year that we have those many options, and we have had good results before. Clearly, every year the standard is getting higher and higher and higher. So in order to keep competitive, to be there at the top, we have seen the need to start upping up our game. But please do not take this to as a new competitor to think that this is impossible, that this is difficult, that you need 50, 60,000 US dollars to compete, because it is not. But definitely once you get into the game and you really want to go for the first place, you
don't need that. Like you can, for regionals, for example, in Australia, CCC, so ASCA runs CCC, which is the regional championship, and you can do that because they supply some of the equipment as well. Like you can do that for like less than $1,000. And I actually qualified for nationals spending less than $1,000 because I had 200 grams of coffee. So I did it with a coffee that was very affordable. There's a coffee that was $200 a kilo, 200 grams of coffee that was $40. Regional is kind of like your entry level. So can you do regional for very cheap and do great? Yes, you can. And that's actually what we did. National, Australia is super competitive. Can you do it for $500? Absolutely not, because already getting accommodation from Sydney to Melbourne, I think that cost us like $3,000 for the week just to get the accommodation. And so there are a lot of hidden costs like that we don't necessarily see. Like for example, the week of accommodation in Brussels for the whole team, that was, I think I spent something like 4,000 euros for a week of accommodation in Brussels. So it's just like, I think I want people to be aware of these things, that they cost a lot of money, not just because of the equipment, but because of the logistics and because of you need to move people around. You need to stay there a couple of days before. And so there's kind of like a whole hidden, like that's the hidden part of the iceberg, basically. And there are other competitions as well than Brewers Cup. Like we're seeing the emergence of the, more local competitions that don't require you to source coffee necessarily, like AeroPress, for example. Everybody gets the same coffee. Origami's been very popular with a competition where everybody gets the same brewer, but it has the same coffee, similar to the compulsory round style. These competitions are very popular. They're popping all around the world. People absolutely love them, and I think they're fantastic competitions. And so you kind of have like different levels. It's like, do you want to get into Formula One or do you want to get into karting first? And we're definitely like World Brewers Championship, so espresso competitions and filter competitions. They're not getting into the Formula One, Formula Two categories if you want.
And so, cafes have always been a diverse range of people that are trying to do different things. And I think now there's a competition base that kind of is now hitting all those different needs and wants from like the coffee community, which is amazing. I've also got to say, you came in second this close, but do you also kind of feel like you won because APAX, I feel like your product was what feels like used by pretty much every competitor that was there in Brussels. Were there any trends you saw emerging, like from the minerals that were being used, or?
So this is the third year. So we launched the company about 2 years ago, and this is the third World Championship where I guess our products are available. We went from 45% the first year before launching with our prototypes. 2025 last year we were at 87%, and this year we're at 82% of competitors use our products, which I think those numbers are crazy. So I'm incredibly proud of that. It's obviously amazing. Of course, the win for us as a company. Personally, like I'm not really taking that as a win personally. Like I think it's amazing to see people use products that, like I've designed these products. I'm amazed to compete against people who are using products that I designed. So it's a huge pride. I do these competitions. Of course, I want to win. Like Carlos mentioned that really well. Like we compete to win, not to come third, 10th, etc. Like we compete to win. And we give ourselves the chance to win. Like we put the work in order to win. But the real motivation, the reason why we put like thousands of hours into this, like the reason why I'd show up training on Sunday for 10 hours straight when it's beautiful outside. I could be at the beach, and I decide to spend 10 hours in a warehouse training by myself is because I want to be able to bring things to the industry. I want to be able to innovate. And that is the real driver for this competition. It's not because I won the first place. It's because I want to be able to bring things to the industry, share things with people, help people make better coffee. And so that to me is the real win. If there are a bunch of people that message me and say, I've followed the tips that you give on stage and your recipe, and now I make such better coffee because I'm grinding coarser like you recommended, or I'm going for lower extractions like you advised, and my coffee is all of a sudden tastes 100 times better. If I impacted 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever, and that made them brew better coffee, that's the win for me. I'd rather come second and change the world than win and haven't had any meaningful contribution to the industry. Yeah. And so as long as we can innovate and bring contributions to the industry, I think that's where the win is, really.
Agreed. And now, normally right now, as we talk about APAX, we'd be cutting to an ad for APAX. But I'm like, we're right here. I'm giving you a 30-second stage right now. Sell the people. Tell us about APAX.
We design mineral concentrates for coffee that are essentially flavor control tools. They allow you to highlight the natural characteristics of your coffee just by adding a few drops of minerals into your coffee or into your brewing water. So that allows you to increase the acidity, give more sweetness, make your coffee rounder with different profiles that we have designed. It's the ultimate control tool for baristas and home brewers in order to change the way the coffee tastes even after brewing.
There you go. He's done that before.
It was pretty
Look
good.
at him just
feel like you might
reel it off. That was beautiful.
And there's a whole range of different types, right? Like in terms of the additives that people can use that are steering your coffee towards different profiles. How many different products have you got there?
We have 4 of our main range, 4 different mineral recipes that push coffee in different directions. So some that give more acidity, some that give more florality and silkiness, one that gives a lot of sweetness and roundness, one that gives balance. And so they're all formulated with different ratios and different minerals to try and hit different things in coffee. And so people use them based on their preferences usually. So Carlos has a massive preference for one of them. He likes sweetness and he likes rounds, pretty heavy coffees in general. And so he gravitates towards jam. That's the one that gives a lot of sweetness. But then you might be someone who likes acidity, and you might like the tonic profile that we've designed.
And so you mentioned like 82% of competitors in the current World Brewers Cup used APAX. Did you see a trend for a preference towards one of those or a couple in particular?
Oh, P.S. The ad break is over. This isn't part of the ad break. This is just a general question.
I'm just interested. Yeah. And welcome back to It's Just Coffee. More questions about APAX.
I don't have the exact breakdown of what everyone used, but just seeing backstage which bottles were. So people brought their equipment backstage, so I could see a number of bottles backstage. It seems that Conflux, the latest one that we have released, was the big winner this year. It was designed to bring a lot of balance to coffee. So if you have a coffee that's too acidic, it will balance the acidity without completely shutting it down. If it's lacking texture, it will give you that roundness that you might be lacking. It's very, very harmonious, and it seems to be the profile that is the most versatile across any types of coffee. Like everyone's got crazy coffees with crazy flavors, with good intensity, and a lot of the time I feel like the game is about, can we control that craziness? Like, can we tame this coffee down a little bit? And I think that's why this profile was particularly popular this year.
Nice. And so you've just come off the world stage. What are some of the other major trends that you've seen kind of coming out at the competition?
If you look at last year's championship and this year's championship, I think the big one for me is seeing people who grind substantially coarser than before and people who do shorter ratios. So people extract less out of their coffees in general. You'll see ratios of like 1:12, 1:13. I don't think anyone did like 1:16, 1:17. So shorter ratios, coarser grind size, and in general, slightly weaker brews. I think it's been quite obvious if you look at the presentations this year. Did you notice anything else?
I think in terms of presentation of time on stage, there was a little bit of a change in the 46 competitors. This year, you could see more use of accessories, tools, visual helpers. In previous years, everyone thought that the rules for Brewers Cup was like against this, like do not use accessories, do not use anything. But I think now with the addition of the rule that says to do a service that is similar to a real life cafe experience, that is bringing up again the use of props and so on. So Simon, for example, used like the Clarity pyramid, but it was a visual helper, right? Nas, the champion, used like a visual effect thing with some different rocks and stuff. That was kind of like a trend this year that we have not seen before. Like before, it was only 1-2 competitor taking the risk to do that. In this one, a lot of competitors went there, and we saw a lot of things on stage. If we really want these events to transcend to after the event, get people going online to check the presentations, those are the kind of aspects that will make these things bigger and bigger and bigger. Like if we all stick to just talk about coffee, talk about this, like no one is going to go and watch 50 presentations that talk about the absolutely the same, just changing the name of the coffee. But if you start seeing new things, new tools, new visuals, and a little bit more education and entertaining, let's call it like that, this can only grow and grow and grow and grow.
And now check this. I'm going to deliver this one just right down the barrel of the camera because I wanted to hit home, Hey, you. I have one of the best brewers in the world sitting with me right now, and he's going to tell you the one thing that you should change to make better filter coffee at home.
You should grind much coarser than you currently do, and you should extract less out of your coffee. Stop pushing for high extractions. This is making your coffee worse.
How do you do that?
You can grind coarser, which increases the particle size, which makes it harder for water to penetrate, and it will basically dissolve less coffee solids. You can reduce your water temperature. I think that one is a big one. I still see people brewing at 94, 95, 96 degrees. Even with light roast, I would definitely consider going lower than that because you start getting dryness, you start getting bitterness, astringency. Like this is my number one. Every time someone gives me a cup that is a bit dry, stringent, my number one reflex is, hey, what's your brewing temperature? Lower that by 3-4 degrees. And then it systematically fixes it. Things like shortening your ratio as well, not pouring as much water as you would normally do. That's a good way. The more water you pour, the more stuff you extract from your coffee. So if you use less water, you will extract less. So there are a couple of ways that you can extract less out of coffee.
So for someone sitting here right now, they're like, I've got a bag of filter coffee at home. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to brew it. Can you break that down into a step-by-step? I know it's going to change coffee to coffee, but just give us one that they should throw at it. Like how many grams of coffee, how many grams of water, how coarse?
How coarse is a difficult one because it really depends. I mean, grind settings are quite tricky, but let's start with grind size. Think of like really coarse salt, but extremely coarse salt, like not medium finely ground salt, like very, very, very coarse ground salt. So that's where you want to start. And in terms of ratio, you want to be at around like 1:14, maximum 1:15, I would say. So if you're using 15 grams of coffee, you want to be pouring like, let's say around 200 to 225 grams of water. So 15 grams coffee, 200 to 225 grams of water. And you want to be doing about like 2 to 3 pours. You want to break that into two to three pours. So you don't pour all the water at once. Do it in multiple steps, basically. But grinding coarse, lower ratios, that's generally a recipe for success. I mean, so we've done a short ratio. We did 14:200. Nas, who won, did 15:200. So it shows that everyone's sort of like gravitating towards. And there's a whole bunch of competitors that were grinding coarse and using short ratios.
Beautiful. Thank you. Do you have one brewing tip, Carlos?
Lower the number of pours as well. I think it's very common to see people using 5 pours. Back in the days, especially in Australia, it was so popular to use 5 pours techniques. And I think that's so outdated.
It's unnecessary.
So outdated. Like, literally, there are so many other ways you can.
Immersion, actually, there was a big trend that we saw emerge from this championship. We saw, so as Carlos was saying before, I think a good way to brew a good cup of coffee was to grind very coarse. Like that's the starting point. Grind coarse is the starting point to brew an excellent cup of coffee. But then you still need to extract some of that coffee. So people would do like 4 to 5 pours to try and extract to extract more of that coffee. But now we're seeing the emergence of immersion. So instead of trying to do multiple pours and trying to pour fresh water and create a lot of agitation, you could just simply have a valve that's closed, pour some of your water, let it sit for a bit, and then open the valve later and let everything drain. And so we have seen more and more people using this sort of like switch mechanism. So Hario switch, we use the Pulsar, which has that same mechanism. Jackie uses on Brewer with a switch mechanism too. So the vast majority of brewers were using some sort of like hybrid immersion percolation. And that's one of the big trends from this World Championship.
Jack Simpson just won the World Barista Championships, technically making him the best barista in the world.
But I have a question for you. He used Riverina Fresh milk. He flew it from Melbourne to Milan. Does that make Riverina Fresh the best milk in the world?
I'm not quite sure.
You heard it here first. Riverina Fresh is the best milk in the world.
Well, look, it certainly received some great scores from the judges. And thanks to the team at Riverina, who are kind sponsors of the podcast, they have arranged a sweet deal.
In Australia, you can get a free trial delivered to your cafe right now and serve up the same milk as the World Barista Champion. Just visit riverinafresh.com.au and sign up for your free trial. That's riverinafresh.com.au.
And actually, I think calling it a bloom makes it more complicated. You're new to coffee. You're like, what is that? What should I bloom? How long should I bloom for, etc. It's a pour, and then you can decide how long you want to stagger this pour and how much water you want to pour it in these pours. But I think giving the bloom a specific name and a specific role, I think it's sort of like misleading. And I'm not saying that it doesn't matter how long you're waiting and how much water you're pouring, that it definitely matters. But I think just to simplify it, like I don't know any sort of like people who compete at a high level that refers to the bloom, for example. I think we're all starting to realize that when you have good coffee, if the grain wasn't too old before it was roasted, you can actually brew and drink coffee way past its freshness peak, or way past what you would think is the freshness peak. So for example, on stage, my coffee was rested for 6 weeks and there was no sign of age or anything like that. And so a lot of that CO2 is already gone.
Freshness is post-harvest, not post-roast. And again, the example of the carrot, you don't cook a carrot that has been a year in the fridge, cooked it, and say, this is a fresh carrot. That was not a fresh carrot. That's a year-old carrot, just freshly cooked. Freshly roasted, not equal to fresh coffee. Mm-hmm. Okay? Hot take. Don't ask me for hot takes. If you know me, why you invite me. If you know me, why you invite me here to
We knew it was coming, Carlos. We knew it was coming. We knew it was coming. And I've got to unlearn that too, hey, because as I was coming up in specialty coffee, that whole freshness of roast, because it was such a new concept, right? Because we were battling against really stale, darkly roasted imported coffee. So if you're in a country around the world that you're shifting to a more specialty kind of mindset, maybe that's still in your head, right? Is like freshly roast is good. And I think, it's definitely better than, 4-month-old supermarket coffee that was badly roasted and probably poor green, like unfresh green as well. But I think that idea of like resting out your filter coffee in particular into a few weeks old before you brew it is it's a really nice thing for the stability and predictability of your coffee and what you're going to get in the cup.
Light roast thing started as a fight or going against the really dark roast, old, 6 months old, shipped from Europe to Australia, to Asia, to the rest of the world. So it was old and dark. And so the specialty coffee movement started to go against it with very light roast profiles and very fresh post-roast coffees. Cool. That had a time in history that was very useful. Now, the industry has evolved. Now, maybe the norm is to roast fresh and to roast not that dark anymore. So two things, in my opinion, need to be reconsidered. The level of roast, like now we do not need to roast that light. The time of going against the super dark is finished. We won that battle. Now that's our palate. Like we still see extremely light roast, and respect to that philosophy, respect to those ones that for the coffee that we normally enjoy. We like a little bit more of development, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no need to satanize the development. It's too dark, and so what? Like that's why you can grind coarser, less number of pours. You can start adapting to that. And the other one is the freshness. Like now, we are not talking about coffees that have been sitting on a warehouse roasted for 6 months. Now that is not the case. So now we need to redefine the ideal post-roast consumption dates. Like perfect example, the brewer that just got second in the world used a coffee roasted for 6, entering the 7th week post-roast. If that is not an example that the 15 days is totally gone from the industry, I don't know.
At 2 weeks, the coffee was tasting terrible.
Absolutely.
Like the coffee was tasting terrible at two weeks.
What's the like curve on this, right? Like we're talking 6 weeks. Like have you pushed it? Like where are we pushing this boat out to?
If you find what the curve looks like, please let me know because we're still trying to figure that out.
Okay, well next time you're on the episode, I want more answers on this curve and the timeline of like
where's the drop off.
It's hard to say because it's not linear. Coffee,
at 2 years it skyrockets back up,
drops, and then it's hard to predict because it's also coffee specific. It's specific to how it was roasted. It's specific to how it was stored, the system in which it was roasted. But you definitely notice that when a coffee just comes out of the roaster, it actually tastes pretty good. And then a couple days later, it will decline and it will come back up. And maybe when it comes back up, it's not a straight line. Maybe it goes like this.
So Carlos, here's a thought for you. Coffee bags. Let's remove the roasted on date and let's add a harvested on date.
Ooh, nice.
Love that.
What do you think about that, Carlos?
Look, I love that, but again, I don't want to be that guy always to be that like the strong opinionated guy and stuff like that.
Mate, I was trying to set you up for a reel right here. I was just rubbing the ball to you.
This is the thing. Wait. All I want to say is I don't see the need of one replacing the other.
Right.
I don't see roasting at origin, for example, replacing roasters around the world. Come on, I love all roasters around the world. I work in this industry for all those guys. So again, I don't see one against the other. Hey, it's both. It's a complement. It can be roast date and harvest date. There can be a combination of roasted in consuming countries and supporting roasters at origin. There's not one that will conquer the other and the other should disappear. No, there's a space for both. The sun comes out for everyone, my friend.
Oh,
we can have
what
like
a guy.
we need terminology like olive oil, where it's the first press. It's like the
First
new
press.
harvest is called extra virgin coffee. Actually, Liam, you'd be a good face for extra virgin coffee.
Wow. Okay, Liam. There we go.
If I could just one last point on trends, we're definitely seeing there's less and less of, as Carlos said, I would just want to build on that. There's no ultralight roast pretty much in the World Championship. Like that is, I think it's something that we often get asked by people. It's like, oh, how light do you roast? It's like, actually, if you look at the World Championship, everyone is like straight in the medium. Like some will be a bit on the lighter side, some will be a bit on the darker side. But if you're either ultralight or ultra dark, there's no way you can extract anything out of coffee. And Carlos said, like, the trend of ultralight served its purpose for a while. Now it's okay if you like ultralight coffees, but to me they taste like asparagus and
it's hay
straw.
bales.
Yeah, it's just like matcha, and it's the same. If you like ultra dark roasted coffees, it's fine. You like smoke, you like leather and sea salt flavors in your coffee. That's totally okay. But being in the middle means that you have so much more room as a brewer to extract your coffee and to showcase different aspects of it. When you're on either end of the spectrum, it's extremely difficult to work with that coffee because your parameters are going to be locked in one or the other direction. So in the World Championship, you really don't see ultralight roast anymore. Like you really don't. And you don't see ultra dark roast anymore. You don't see any end of the spectrum.
Comparing with matcha might not be the best example
Firing
because I
shot.
feel like you.
People listening to this
like,
podcast aren't going to care. It's just if the
no,
real...
they'll be like, sweet. Let's not like worry about that shortage of matcha going on in the world. We're just going to do a really light roast again.
But actually, to come back to connection and to bringing more people into specialty coffee. When light roast came out, like the thing is, everyone wanted to get people to bring people to specialty coffee, so to get people to start consuming specialty coffee, not commodity coffee. I think going the complete extreme in roast profile was not necessarily the best approach to bring people into coffee. All we had to do is just, source better coffee and roast less dark, not complete like 180-degree turn, in order to bring more people into that, because then you still have some familiar flavors. You still have this caramelization that is familiar to the non-specialty palates, and that is, I think, an easier stepping stone into getting into specialty coffee as well. I think that's why the battle was so long, because when we went so drastic into lights, then it's very difficult to get anyone from drinking super dark roasted coffee to drinking light roasted coffee. Like it's incredibly difficult.
And if I go, I'm all on board with that side of things. That little bit of extra development, that flavor, those elements is spot on. And I think we've seen a lot of those. I know in Melbourne, we've seen a lot of those cafes that maybe were kind of the pioneers of the ultralight. It almost like they must have had a meeting, because I swear there was like a difference of a month where I went into the cafe and I was like, oh, hang on. Like, oh, now we're talking. Now we're getting back on track. Now, and I know we're only a few days out from the competition, but I've already seen you posting, renaming the 2026 group chat to 2027. So you're gonna be back?
I tell you what, before he even answers this, I talked to this guy on the phone, like, I don't know, a couple of hours after the announcement going, oh, do you think we can, jump on a podcast? And he was like, look, didn't get the result we wanted, but I'll be back. This is like hours after the announcement. Back. So, I don't know. I think he's answered it.
Okay. Yeah, I think, look, I didn't go through the whole post-competition depression. Oh, we came second, not first. Like, I enjoyed the game. We enjoyed the innovation. We've brought innovation. We've brought, we've made coffee more accessible to people. And I think the victory is in getting like well over 1,000 messages from people from all around the world saying, "Oh, I watched your presentation. It was amazing. I connected with it. They made this clearer for me. I can now brew better coffee." That's the win for me. And so then, going back again I think it's not even an option. Like we have to go back, whether I go back or whether Carlos goes back. And I think that's something important mentioning. Like, we don't actually really care who's competing, but we want to compete as a team. And it could be myself, it could be Carlos. One is just going to be the pilot. The other one is going to be the support team, like the coach, the engineer, if you want. We have Nemo as well in the team. Nemo is a world AeroPress champion. He's actually the only world champion of all of us. Nemo's come first. I've come second. Carlos has come third in the world championship. So it doesn't, almost at that stage, it doesn't matter who's, or at least like, I really don't care who is competing. I want us as a team to compete. I want us to keep pushing boundaries. I want us to keep sharing coffee with the world and bring more people into specialty coffee. So that's a given. Like, we're definitely going to be back. Whether it's me, Carlos, both of us, time will tell.
I think, or maybe we'll change the rules, get two of you on stage. I think whoever ends up with the best rig by next year, because I've seen you two working out while you're over there and you guys are looking good. These guys are fierce. So whoever's the most jacked should get up on stage next year is my thought.
Well, the next World Championship is in Bogota, and that's, coincidentally very close to where Carlos lives. So I think we're putting a lot of efforts now and our focus into getting him onto the world stage so he can represent Colombia in a world championship happening in Colombia, which I think beautiful. Is a dream of his.
Especially what an icon of Colombia. That would be amazing.
Yeah. That would be a dream. And yeah, look, again, we knew that from the beginning. We're gonna give it a go. We're gonna go again. Like as Simon said, like it doesn't matter who's the driver. We are a team. We have been a team for the last 7 years. That's very important to mention. Like, yes, now we have some results, but we have been working together in competitions for 7 years. I don't think there's any other team in the world that has been working for that long. You see teams and people teaming up for a year, for two, and then they break down. And then they go and get other people and so on, and then they go back to the top. And I think that's been key for our consistency. We've been for 7 years just improving, working together, and that's still the case. So are we going to go back? The answer is yes. When? This year, next year, we're not going to stop, not planning to stop anytime soon. Yeah. And who's going to make it? Well, maybe both, who knows? And then we'll need to make strategic decisions, and the time will come for that.
So, like in sports, you rarely see athletes who are at the top of their game retire when they're at the top of their game. Like usually someone wins any world championship. Like Max Verstappen became the world Formula 1 champion, and he went again the year after. Like he didn't retire. And so I think if you ask us right now, like I don't think I've made better coffee than I do today, and it's probably the same as you. Mm-hmm. And I think we still have margin to improve, which is the exciting part. And so I don't think there's any reason to.
What are you improving?
Improving a few things in terms of decision making. We made a few mistakes in terms of decision making backstage, and we made a few mistakes. And I think in the concept has really cornered us into one style of coffee, and so that I think is something that I would try and improve on. And there's a few like little brewing things that I think we can improve. At this level, I think the gain is very marginal, but 1% here and there, I think goes a really long way.
All right. Underrated or overrated filter coffee edition with a brewing champ, freezing coffee.
Roasted, it's overrated. Your coffee declines over time very quicker than you think. Green coffee, it's underrated. Green coffee, frozen, vacuum sealed, can age for years and it's amazing.
Flat bottom brewers.
Overrated. I don't think it makes a big difference with conical. You can make an amazing cup of coffee with either of them.
1:16 ratio.
Overrated. You're extracting too much out of your coffee. Stop doing that.
Co-fermented coffee.
Neither. I think they have their purpose. They connect people with coffee. They bring new people into specialty coffee. And I think that's amazing.
That's his PR written response there. Australian coffee scene.
Competition scene, underrated. I think we win. I mean, Australians do extremely well on the world stage. Coffee cafe scene, in terms of coffee, a little bit overrated. I think I moved here 10 years ago and it hasn't improved as much as any other country.
Well, I'm seeing a correlation cause. EK43.
Overrated. It's time it's past.
Conical Brewers.
Conical brewers, underrated. I think when you have conical brewers, you tend to have more fines. That doesn't mean worse for coffee. So underrated.
Rinsing filter papers.
Super overrated. Stop rinsing your filters. Stop doing that. It doesn't give a papery taste to your coffee. Just absolutely stop rinsing your papers. Do a side-by-side blinds, and you'll see that generally, most of the time, it tastes better when you don't rinse your papers. That is so overrated.
5 pour recipes.
Overrated. Same thing. They had their purpose in the past. Now we figure out we could do immersion, so their time is gone.
Spraying beans with an RDT.
Underrated. I think it definitely makes a big impact. It gives a lot of consistency. So especially if you're grinding with an electric grinder, underrated.
Mineralizing water.
I would have said underrated a few years back, and now I think we're seeing more people building their own water. I still think this is the most important variable when it comes to coffee brewing. Your minerals are your second ingredients. Minerals and water are your second ingredients with coffee. So it's kind of like a hack that you're creating for yourself when you have access to minerals. You basically get to play with the second ingredients.
All right, Simon, it's not an ad. And finally, geisha.
Geisha, not overrated, not underrated, kind of in the middle.
Properly rated.
The best coffees in the world are geishas most of the time, but it doesn't mean that because you have a geisha that it's going to taste good.
That was some great answers. You could see that a few of those I was T-balling you up there, knowing roughly where we'd be going
but
with that.
I know you too well.
We got all of that there. Thank you so much. How are you guys feeling? You got a hot take for us?
We do, yeah.
They're prepared.
Initially had none, and then I came up with 6-7 hot takes very, very quickly. So
6. Well, hit us with that. Let's play the music then. If we've got them set up, let's hit the music.
You go first. Okay.
Who's first?
Coffee people should stop listening to science in order to make better coffee. Improvements are not in anything, not just coffee, and that's in sports science, cooking, food science, etc. Improvements are made by athletes and chefs and baristas by trial and error. You try a whole bunch of things, see what works. Science is there to then try and make sense of that, try to understand how that thing worked. But if we waited for science to come up with new discoveries, we would still be eating grass and raw products. Like fire was invented by trial and error. Different, like cooking was invented by trial and error. Like cheese, wine, everything was invented by trial and error. Then you look at how things are being done, what is working, what is the pattern, and science makes sense of that. And science helps you then connect the dots and then save a lot of time and then improve later on. But trial and error, I think, is so underrated. And I see way too many baristas and home brewers trying to read white papers on coffee that are, it just makes no sense to me to try and brew better coffee. If you want to brew better coffee, isolate a variable, taste it blind, see what it does to the cup, and try to make sense of that variable. And do that over and again. Like explore yourself. Don't try and read scientific papers. Don't try and rely on science too much. I think people tend to forget that science and the truth around science is relative to time and space. It's not because someone wearing a white lab coat says it that is necessarily true. And what is true today here in Australia might not be true tomorrow in another part of the world. It's relative. Like the Earth was flat for hundreds of years ago. Everyone believed the Earth was flat. It still is, yeah. In the 1890s, we used to cure the common cold with heroin, for example.
Hey,
in the 1940s,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Maybe in Melbourne still, but in the 1940s, it was advised to be smoking while pregnant. And that was from doctors. That was what was true and correct at the time. But science evolves. When we were young, we were told to drink milk because it makes your bones stronger. And now it's like, oh, maybe milk is not so good for you. And so science evolves, truth evolves over time. And it's the same thing for coffee. Like what was deemed to be correct before changes over time. But the constant with coffee, the universal constant is sensory taste and your personal preferences. So rely less on what you might read or what sort of like some scientific studies might say, and trust your guts more and go out and explore yourself a lot more. That's my That's my hot take.
Well said. To the artistry that is happening in the trial and error. I often think sometimes when I'm like, especially baking or like that kind of thing, when I'm following certain recipes, I'm like, how did this person come up with this hundreds of years or thousands of years ago, when they're like, you add yeast, then you water, then it has to be at this temperature, this exact temperature, then you leave it for this long, then it expands, then you have to fold it to build this, then you have to do it. And I'm just like, how did they come up with this? This must have been like thousands. Of years of just like doing it and trying different things and evolving this method, because they're wild.
Yeah. And now science is there to make sense of that. Science is there to explain, you need the yeast in order to eat the sugar and in order to expand the bread, etc. At this temperature, you cannot have any caramelization. But you're right. It's hundreds of years of trial and error until people nailed it. But we didn't wait for scientists to write a white paper to figure out how to bake bread, for example.
Carlos, hit me with that spicy take, because I know you got one brewing. I know you got one hidden in that beautiful, lustrous beard.
Brewers Cup is becoming the top category at WCC. The times for WBC are getting challenged by the young brother. And why is that? I think I cannot recall when I've been with a group of friends, like coffee professionals, that we go to a coffee shop and order, give me 5 espressos. I don't recall that in all the years I've been working in the industry. Yeah, every now and then you get like, give me 1 espresso, but if you insist, I try it. Sure, it's fantastic. But all the pros and people into coffee are into filter coffee. Presentations are becoming more and more and more interesting. We're just missing a little change in the rules. So please, if you are a WBRC judge, just tweak it a tiny bit so there's more excitement in these presentations and that bring more people into it. But I do believe WBRC has been growing exponentially over the last years, and not at the, let's say, WBC, not at the same pace.
So here's a question for you. Ben, if we air this, are you getting fired?
Hey, I didn't say anything. I mean,
okay. You're allowed to sit there. Is it? So then I'll give the floor to you, Ben. What do you have to say?
Carlos, I've just got one thing to tell you. Just get ready for IBRIC competition. You think you're the hot new stuff, but IBRIC's just going to be like, whatever, Brewers Cup. I'm on the up.
I'm into the new pod brewing competition. I think that's where it is.
Yeah, exactly. Compulsory Crups Championship.
All right.
That's what we're into.
Guys, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so proud of you both. I think you've done an amazing effort putting it all together. And I think what you were aiming for is true, because after watching your presentation and what you did, I thought there was a lot in there that is helping change the industry, help push it forward, invite more people into specialty coffee, because that's what we're struggling at the moment. So people running cafes, people brewing coffees, listen to this advice. Clarity, simplicity, inviting, bringing people in. We're not diving into like the ins and outs of like the little brewing things. It's all about the clarity and bringing people into specialty coffee. Where can everyone find you guys? What do you got going on? Because I know we got roasteries, we got APAX Labs. Give us the details.
So Simon on Instagram at Simon Gautherin, Gautherin, and my business is called APAX Lab, APAXLAB. We make mineral concentrates for coffee. If you ever have any question about coffee, shoot me a message. I take pride in responding to every single message I get. And right now it's taking a bit longer than usual, but I reply to everyone who sends me questions about coffee.
No, that's beautiful, because I do not. Carlos.
And Differente Coffee, so different with an E at the end. Coffee is a roaster based in Colombia, changing the perception of coffee roasted at origin. And Carlos.esco.bar.
Amazing. Two of the guests together that have two of our highest performing episodes and two of our highest loved episodes. So getting them together, what a absolute blast. And if you're a barista or a brewer that loved this episode, make sure to share it with a friend. It helps us out so much. And all of the reviews are great. We've been receiving some great feedback lately, which we've been loving. You can hit us up at hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com or It's Just Coffee Podcast on Instagram. We love you all. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.